Hello. Today I'm just going to be recording myself reading as much as this as possible. A book on Yellowstone National Park. I will be trying to make it to the very end of the book. There are 148 pages. I have read books that are longer than that, so I think I can make it. This is very great photos. I could always renew this thing, though. That's exactly what I'll do. I'll renew this. But then I also have Spider-Man comics that I need to get to. What the heck? Okay, let's just begin and see where 15 minutes gets us. A Weird and Wild Beauty. The story of Yellowstone, the world's first national park. Okay. 2016. Pretty good. Okay. Hydrothermal features. The red dotted line represents the Hayden Expedition's route through Yellowstone in 1871, mapped by Ryan Peabody. I know it's backwards right here, but... Prologue. Disbelief. While you see and wonder, you seem to need an additional sense to comprehend and believe. Nathaniel Langford, explorer in Yellowstone. New York City, winter 1878-71. J.G. Holland sat at his desk, staring wide-eyed at the pages spread before him. Holland was an editor at Scribner's Monthly, a popular magazine and source of news for Americans in the mid to late 1800s. Holland had just received the most bizarre-sounding account. It spoke of a strange land where the ground gurgled and hissed. A land where scalding waters blew from craters and vats of steaming pink mud threatened to swallow a man whole. The place, according to the man who'd recently traveled through the region, abounded with boiling springs, mud volcanoes, and huge mountains of sulfur. Incredulous, Holland tried to absorb the dazzling imagery. The author, clearly spellbound by what he saw, gushed about brilliant turquoise pools and hot water fountains. The mud volcano, the man wrote, erupted with the force of thundering cannons. Its boiling broth scalded trees of yards away. This world of absurdities, the traveler informed Holland, was not some far-off land. It belonged to the United States. J.G. Holland, editor at Scribner's Monthly magazine, opened himself to criticism when he published a jaw-dropping account on the wonders of Yellowstone in 1871. The journalist died 10 years later with the phrase, "to devote life to truth," etched in Latin on his gravestone. The mysterious high mountain region lay just south of the sprawling Montana Territory. By the 1860s, as increasing numbers of settlers infiltrated the western half of the country, this area remained one of the last unexplored pockets left in the West. Its location, if it even appeared on maps, was marked by only two haunting words: terra incognita, which is Latin for unknown land. Impenetrable snow and ice, as well as fears about hostile native tribes, had kept men from exploring this region, as had rumors about the area's inferior boilers that supposedly belched steam, reeked of death, and harbored sinister spirits. Scribners, similar to today's Time or Life magazines, was was a common fixture in American households in the 19th century. Readers prized its lavish illustrations, as photographs were still a rare treat, and rushed to read its latest features on history, science, religion, and art. And by the 1860s, travel writing had become popular, especially stories about America's exotic western frontier. To most Easterners living and working in cramped, smoke filled factory towns, the American West, with its dramatic scenery, invigorating air, and populations of curious indigenous people, seemed unusual, enticing, and bursting with possibility. Artists' woodcut of a mud volcano appearing in Scribner's Monthly. The first issue of the monthly periodical Scribner's Monthly. Images, like this painting by Albert Bierstadt, drew Americans westward. Western explorer Jason C. Fremont. No, he doesn't. He does not look familiar to me. Okay. Ever since the trailblazers Meriwether Lewis and William Clark shared the fascinating details of their daring journey in 1804 across the country to the Pacific Ocean and back, Americans had craved details about the little-known western half of their country. Scribner's readers tracked the progress of Western adventurers such as John C. Fremont with great excitement. His gritty accounts of scaling mountains and surviving blazing desert heat appeared in the nation's newspapers as well as the penny press, a tabloid-style paper that sold for a penny apiece and made news affordable for the working class. City dwellers envied the freedom of explorers like Fremont. "What a wild life," wrote poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow about Fremont's heroic rambles across the West. "And what a fresh kind of existence." By the 1870s, the nation was also eager to escape the dark gloom cast by the recent Civil War. Thousands of families had lost loved ones. More than 600,000 American soldiers had perished in the 4-Year War. Cities and local economies had been ravaged by the fighting. Amid all of this, the wide blue skies of the West emanated hope for the nation's downtrodden. Holland continued to consider the colorful account he had received. What could be more exciting to readers than details about a yet discovered American territory, where hot waters leaped from the ground and steaming blue pools funneled deep into the earth? Yet, how absurd it all sounded. Bubbling pink mud? Jetting fountains? Could such a place truly exist? As a journalist, Holland had also had to consider the reputation of the magazine. Should he take a chance on such sensational-sounding material? The account's author, Nathaniel Langford, was evidently well educated. The former banker had moved to the Montana Territory shortly after gold struck in the region in 1863. Furthermore, Langford was joined on his journey by several other leading citizens of the Montana Territory, including a former major general in the Civil War, a journalist, and an attorney. I am the very model of a modern major general. I think I'm funny. Nathaniel Langford during the 1870 Yellowstone expedition. An artist's depiction of one of the astonishing sights, a geyser cone, described by Langford in Scribbler's Monthly. Scribner. Yellowstone River, running through the Wyoming and Montana territories. 11 minutes. Awesome. After much consideration, Holland decided to publish Langford's account of the peculiar paradise near the Montana Territory. The editor ultimately believed in giving his readers the intriguing stories they desired. By the following spring, Langford's story, told in his own words, appeared in Scribner's. An artist was tasked with illustrating the unusual marvels the traveler had described. But with no photographs or first-hand experience to reference, the artist relied heavily on his own imagination. Despite Langford's intelligent prose, the story about the wondrous region out west was rejected by many readers. Some wrote letters to the magazine's office, mocking the paper for printing nonsense and accusing Holland of abandoning his ethics. One reader dismissed Langford as the champion liar of the Northwest. Many Easterners accepted that the American West was home to surprising scenery, but for some the land adorned with boiling craters and rocketing fountains sounded too fantastic to be true. End of prologue. Chapter 1. Homeland. Page 1. By the time I was 40, I could see our country was changing fast, and that these changes were causing us to live very different. Plenty Coup, Crow Chief. The absurd land that Langford described in the Scribner's article already had a name, Yellowstone, and it had been a home and destination for many people for thousands of years. Mise Adazi, the earliest people called it. Meaning Rock Yellow River, this name was used by Minitari American Indians to describe the large river in the area that coursed and coiled through bluffs of golden rock. French fur trappers fanning out into the region to hunt beaver in the 1700s translated the native word they heard to Roche Juan. In English, the region, as well as the river that ran through it, became known as Yellowstone. American Indians and their ancestors used Yellowstone as a hunting ground and home for at least 10,000 years. Archaeologists know this based on primitive tools they've discovered in the area. Yellowstone offered indigenous peoples a bounty of resources. Massive herds of buffalo, elk, and sheep to hunt for food and clothing. Rivers and lakes teeming with trout, and hot water springs that could be tapped for cooking, medicinal purposes, and much needed winter warmth. A group of Plains American Indians known as the Crow lived east of Yellowstone in parts of present-day Montana and Wyoming, where many of their stone in parts many of their descendants still reside today. Flathead and Blackfeet peoples traveled down to Yellowstone from the north using the Yellowstone River as a guide. These tribes created their own trails and journeyed through Yellowstone seasonally. In spring, they'd wait until the chill tributaries of the Yellowstone River turned pink with masses of spawning cutthroat trout. In summer, they tracked the large herd of buffalo, elk, and antelope that grazed in Yellowstone's lush green valleys. They also mined the region's rich stores of obsidian, a black, glassy rock so coveted for its utility and beauty that it was traded as far east as the Ohio River Valley. But one group of American Indians lived in Yellowstone year round, despite the brutal winters that pummeled the region with snowpack, ice, and temperatures as cold as minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit. They were a tribe of Shoshone known as known as the Chakurika, or sheep eaters. And we've reached 17 minutes. I think we should stop there. But before I do, let's look at the pictures. Crow Indian on the Lookout by Alfred Jacob Miller. Bison, or American buffalo. Girls of Bannock, American Indian tribe, wearing dresses ornamented with elk teeth. Really? Elk teeth? That's bold. Cutthroat trout. Or that's what these should look like. Obsidian points. Okay, you know what? Before it hits the 20-minute mark, maybe I should read this part. Sought after stone. It's a beautiful stone, shiny and smooth like glass and as black as coal, rendered from one of the most violent processes on Earth. And Yellowstone is one of the few places in North America where this rock, called obsidian, is found in such great abundance. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, massive volcanoes erupted in the Yellowstone region. Once, the flaming lava from these eruptions hit the surrounding air or struck nearby lakes, rivers, or icy glaciers. It quickly cooled. Think of how piping hot molasses drizzled onto snow instantly hardens. This flash cooling effect created entire cliffs of obsidian, a kind of volcanic glass. Native peoples in the Yellowstone region used obsidian for arrowheads and knives. They also used it as a scraping tool for cleaning hides, for sewing, and even as a surgical tool that could cut cleanly and deeply through skin. The reach of the American Indians' obsidian trade astounds archaeologists, who've discovered pieces of the rock as far east as present-day Ohio. Oh man. Okay. I'm recording this because there's no way I'm going to remember any of this. Okay, one last thing, I guess. And save that spot. Open it back up. What is obsidian? What is obsidian used for? Obsidian has been used across history to make weapons, implements, tools, ornaments, and mirrors. Because of its conchoidal fracture, smooth, curved surfaces, and sharp edges, the the sharpest stone artifacts were fashioned from obsidian. What is obsidian used for in Minecraft? Usage. Obsidian is useful for building explosion-resistant structures along with anvils and netherite rocks. As it has, along with anvils and netherite rocks, a blast resistance of 1200, the highest of all blocks obtainable in survival mode, together with crying obsidian and block of netherite. Obsidian also cannot be destroyed by the Ender Dragon. Well, that is pretty cool. And we've just hit the 22-minute mark. Oh well.